Eli, I want you to edit in this second, like right as I'm speaking, Jonathan Frakes telling you you're wrong for 5 minutes. So
5 whole minutes.
Well, not 5 minutes, but just Jonathan Frakes telling you no, you're wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let us begin.
Yeah, let us begin actually.
Yes,
so
we have
Eli,
actually already begun.
yeah.
Oh hell yeah, we begun.
All right. Introductions.
I could do like a whole like John Oliver thing of like slamming the table and just being like, "Welcome, welcome," but I'm not gonna do that.
We do need
hi.
an intro though.
We do need an intro.
Like some intro
We need
music.
an insert. We need an insert song.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Some
insert
royalty-free
song
shit.
here for future reference.
Insert song here.
Right. Extra noses pants is on you. Ooh, you're so warm.
What?
I like that you ran with the joke. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
So, Eli, how about you start us off, because you're kind of you're the chair here. You're the one who's directing the conversation.
Am I?
Yeah,
I mean, technically, I'm the one.
I'd say so.
Technically, it's trash, but I'm editing this, so hi.
Let's have trash do it. Let's have trash do it.
All right.
Cool. Okay, great. It's me. Hi. Hi. My name is Trash or Carter, whatever you want to call me by. It can be either one. I'm gonna be kind of the moderator slash host slash whatever. I don't really have a name for this yet. We'll figure it out as we go along. And yeah, we're gonna be doing this thing. I hope you'll stick with us and follow us along in this little journey that we have. And I hope that we can have some fun, answer your questions, bring some awareness to topics that you might know, maybe not know. Just have a good time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Archer, you next. Let's go down the list.
Wealth, fame, power. Gold Roger, the king of the... Wait a minute. Hold on. Wrong intro.
Is he doing a bit? Sorry, go on.
That was the intro to One Piece.
Oh, right. Shh.
Hello, everyone. I'm Archer. I'm the King of Heroes. I created the Project Development Hub to help people achieve their dreams and bring about like a better sense of community for different artists and writers and whatnot. I'm hoping that this podcast really helps us reach out to more people and find more people that are interested in this and interested in helping us out.
Awesome.
Right.
And I'm next. I'm Eli. I'm a writer. I've joined the PDH as well, moderator on it, and I'm edit the podcast. So if y'all make any problems for me, you guys will suddenly not be heard on the podcast.
Silence.
Suddenly not be heard. All right, Roman.
The entire podcast falls silent.
Hi, I'm Roman. I am also recently a moderator on PDH. I just, I have a love for arts and telling a story. And I think everybody has a story to tell. And that's my favorite part about it, is that no matter what your skill set is that you can tell a story that somebody might enjoy, even if it's just yourself.
Awesome.
Yep.
And Trash already did his intro, so Volks.
All right. So I'm Volks. I'm a moderator on the Project Development Hub. Archer brought me on fairly early on, I think. And I am the creator, one of the lead writer for the Project Skyfall. It is sort of my baby. It came from the ashes of a attempted rewrite of an anime I like. And now I'm really happy to see it progress and move forward on the server. So yeah.
Awesome.
Hell yeah, baby.
So, first topic, yeah.
That's a touchdown.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so today's topic, for those of you that don't know, because I don't think we said it yet and we weren't recording, we're going to be talking about Disney. And Disney is a really interesting topic to discuss, because Disney at this point is a lot more than just animated movies, and it's a lifestyle brand, I think is a safe thing to say at this point. We're going to be running down a bunch of different things. We're going to be running down favorite animated movies. We're going to be talking about TV shows. We're going to be talking about a lot, and we're even going to have a special guest on later today who's going to help further that conversation and show off some really cool stuff to us. So I guess if we want to start out anywhere, if we're going to start with Disney, I think the best place to start out would probably be the animated programming and animated just movies, because that's really what they were known for such a long time. And if we're going to start it out anywhere, I'd say let's start it out with just how, like, our favorite ones that we really like, ones that we maybe don't like, kind of have that conversation go there. So whoever wants to start, it can.
We'll go top from bottom, I guess. So I'll just go ahead and throw it out there that probably my favorite Disney movie would probably have to be The Lion King. I know that's like a generic ass answer right there, but The Lion King is really good. It was really impactful when I was growing up. So that was definitely a movie that like really resonated with me. It also got me to appreciate storytelling a little bit, because at a young age I was also told like Lion King is not only the story that Disney wrote, it was, a copy of, not a copy, but very much in homage of another story, Hamlet. And that's how I got into reading some classical literature, and it got me to appreciate that a lot. So it really did shape how I actually approached writing and approach story crafting. It got me to appreciate the fact that not all stories, nothing's original under the sun, and it's okay to take inspiration and be okay with people observing that inspiration. So that's a major part of the creative process. If I had to like cite my least favorite animated Disney movie, just gonna go ahead and sacrifice some sacred cows and just say Frozen. I think that was the moment I feel like where Disney had lost it lost something. I feel like it lost an aspect of where it originally came from, especially when it came to how the story flowed. Frozen feels like kind of it oddly feels like it just kind of stops at a point where it's just like, yeah, but the movie didn't stop there though. It kept going for some reason. And that really had to do, I felt like it had to do with the fact that they had the surprise villain pop up. And that's not uncommon for Disney movies. They've actually done that before. But with Frozen, it really disrupted the entire flow of the movie, and it just kind of led to it feeling disjointed. And it felt like the movie like ended there and then a new movie started there. And it didn't feel connected.
I feel that's like
kind of my
interestingly, a lot of people would say that the good Disney movies end way earlier than that. Than Frozen. I feel like a lot of people say like Tarzan was like the last of the good Disney animated movies,
I've even heard it like said that like Hunchback was the last good Disney movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd say
because like right after that came Pocahontas. So
exactly right.
I'd say if we have a conversation like that, we'd have to kind of figure out what we all define as a good Disney movie. So
yeah,
why don't someone else give us your favorite, give us your least favorite, and then after all of us give it, I'll go last just because I'm the one moderating this thing. I'll go last, and once we all have it, then we can start kind of seeing what each of us kind of views as making a good Disney movie.
It's a good idea.
So, are we making a distinction between the 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional?
So
now they're all Disney. You can like, there's not really a reason to say like this is my favorite 3D movie and this is my favorite 2D movie, because like if we wanted to get into a discussion on like traditional 2D animation versus like computer generated animation, that would be like a totally different sort of conversation to have. We can definitely have that during this, but I think that it's not necessary for saying like what's your favorite Disney movie.
Yeah, I'd say the only distinction that we should make is the one where it's just like it has to be made underneath the Disney branch, because as far as I'm concerned, Toy Story is not a Disney movie, it's a Pixar movie.
Yeah,
that's right.
And like Ice Age is a Fox movie, not a Disney movie.
True.
Like so whoever wants to go next, speak your piece.
Well,
I'll say
okay.
sorry.
Okay, yeah, Roman, you go. I want to make sure.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna bring up two that I say are gonna be my favorite, and then maybe talk about a third one. I kind of like to lean towards some Disney movies. Maybe this because of nostalgia. Some Disney movies that weren't necessarily received like 100% well. Um, I absolutely love Atlantis, and even more than that, Road to El Dorado.
Road to El Dorado.
Road to El Dorado was a DreamWorks movie.
Was it?
Yeah,
It was a DreamWorks movie.
I believe that was
Wow.
like the second one that they made, because I think the first one they made was definitely Prince of Egypt, which
Well, the first one they made was Ants.
Oh,
Like that,
right.
right.
not Bugs
Oh,
Bunny.
my.
Right.
Wow.
Oh,
right,
my.
Prince of Egypt was the first 2D animated one they did. You're right.
Okay, so I'll talk about Atlantis.
Was Treasure Planet also Disney?
Yes.
It was, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm not 100% a huge fan of the musical genre as a whole, and there's definitely some that I enjoy. But I think what was interesting about Atlantis was how it kind of moved away from the formula that Disney had for so long, and it didn't work great for them, obviously, because Atlantis was
A
poorly
commercial
received.
flop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do really enjoy the story and the characters created, and I think the animation style actually is quite beneficial to the story they're trying to tell. You know, I think fantasy works very, very well, or like a fantasy-esque scenario works very well in their animation style. So I as a child, I was like pretty enthralled by the whole world they created.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. It is. Yeah.
I
Um,
loved
it's a
Atlantis
beautiful
too.
movie.
I love
Yeah.
Atlantis.
yeah,
I think I like Treasure Planet more, but Atlantis super good.
yeah.
Mhm.
And ironically, both of those were commercial flops.
Yes,
Yeah.
Treasure Planet like
Which is like
supposedly killed.
interesting because like they were both like really different kinds of movies. I know that Treasure Planet was like it wasn't that unique of a movie. It was a sci-fi movie based on Treasure Island.
Yeah.
But I do think that like both of those movies did take different sort of approaches to making animated movies that just didn't pan out for their times.
Yeah, true.
Mm.
I've done
Yeah.
some looking into just how Treasure Planet work, and there's this amazing video done by, I want to say, Bread's World on YouTube that talks about this. I watched a phenomenal video, and essentially the way he talks about it is the thing that killed the movie, and this is the case for most movies and TV shows and whatnot, wasn't the quality of the product, though that does kind of help. It was the marketing leading.
Use the
into it.
marketing, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the marketing for Treasure Planet was apparently awful.
God awful. Yeah,
Like some of the worst in the industry. And that's part of the reason why it flopped as badly as it did.
Yeah.
Mm.
totally.
I also want to touch Brother Bear, which I think is another Disney movie, which is
Yo, throwback.
outside of the mold.
Brother Bear.
But I think Brother Bear is probably one of the best Disney, in my personal opinion, one of the best I've ever seen.
Wow. All right.
I haven't seen Brother Bear in years.
Jesus.
I saw it
yeah,
in
that's a
theaters.
blast from the past.
I saw it in
Did you
theaters
know
when I was a kid.
Joaquin Phoenix was the main character?
He was.
What?
Was he?
Yeah.
Yo.
He was played by Joaquin Phoenix.
That's
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Didn't know that.
And that's
That
why
is-
he went on and played Joker. He was typecast.
Yeah.
Pro society.
I thought my life was a tragedy, but I realized that my life is a bear.
Yeah.
My life
Dude,
is
like
there.
Joaquin Phoenix has had such a crazy like career in terms of like all the different like parts he's
Roles?
played.
Yeah, it's crazy. I
Yeah.
feel like the only thing in common with all his roles are just like, wow, this is a really interesting character. Like that's it.
You know, going back to the movie itself, I like looking back and thinking about it right now. It had some pretty dark tone, like when you think about the story as a whole. Of course, it was played off like in a child way, so that it wasn't overbearing or too dark and depressing. but at the same time, like it's talking about man's impact on nature and like, because the dude literally kills a bear's parent and then turns into
For
a bear.
revenge, for like
Yeah.
pure like spite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting, I guess,
Yeah, no, like
theme.
that is also something common with Disney movies is that they have some dark undertones when you really examine it, and it's just like it really makes you wonder. It's really interesting actually to see how far you could push the envelope with kids movies. Like
Yeah.
how dark can we make this kids movie?
Yeah.
I mean, like look at the Black Cauldron. That was marketed as a kids movie.
Yeah.
And that movie got scary.
I mean, that movie
Right,
got
yeah.
Frankenstein too.
Yeah, that too.
That movie got Frankenstein to death.
Yeah, because Disney, like the execs looked at it, it's like this is no, you can't release this. We can't.
Not even. It was I don't even remember who was I don't remember who was in charge at the time. But whoever was in charge apparently mid-production came in after like finding out what was wrong, like what was going on with the movie, because production was just awful for this movie. It was like a 15-year production because this movie just could not get off the ground. And whoever was in charge of Disney at the time, because I don't believe it might have been Roy Disney. It might have been. I don't know specifically.
I think it might have been Roy because I remember Black Cauldron coming out after Disney, Walt Disney died, and it was in that really dark period for.
It was
Disney.
in that like 2-decade like long period before they got I forgot
Beauty
their
and the
names
Beast.
to do the Little
No, it was
Mermaid
Little
first.
Mermaid, the first one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Little Mermaid, then Beauty, because that era is when we got like the Rescuers and
God,
Oh,
who
the
remembers
Rescuers
the
got
Rescuers?
dark too.
So
The Rescuers?
like-
Isn't that like
Yeah,
the mouse? Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so
It
the
was the
whole
movie-
We
yeah,
were like
so-
the girl gets kidnapped and the mice go to rescue her.
And then
Yeah.
the secret Easter egg photo in the background that everyone knows about. You guys know what I'm talking about? There's like a
I
pair.
actually don't.
There's like I think it's in the Rescuers where there's just like they're like on a monorail or something like that, or they're going down a slope, and in the background there's a house with like just straight up tits in the window. That is 100%
I don't know if
an
that was-
Easter egg.
I don't
Was
know
it
if
not
that
the
was the
Rescuers?
Rescuers.
I've not seen the Rescuers, so I can't.
Jesus. I mean, like
That
there
was
is
in something.
There is a dick in the cover of the Little Mermaid, but like
True.
But yeah, the whole idea behind what happened with Black Cauldron was whoever was in charge at the time, when they found out what was going on with the movie, and after like a really bad blow up at one point, he basically came in and ended up ripping up like a quarter of the film,
Oh man.
like literally like deleting a quarter of the film, and it was like
Jesus.
awful. It was terrible. There's some really interesting stories that come out of the Disney lots if you go looking for them.
oh yeah. Like there's actually a great series on YouTube called Defunct Land, which is mostly focusing on like Disney's park attractions, but it touches on their like TV industry a little bit and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And like Disney is a weird company when you actually get down to it. And I don't mean to actually, I'm just gonna stop it right there because this is Roman's time to shine. I'm not gonna talk about that, man.
Yeah.
We'll put a
all
link in the description.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, actually, like Defunct Land's a great series. You should watch it. That's all I'm gonna say.
So
Yeah. I'm just gonna. I don't really have a bad Disney movie. I haven't seen like a plethora, so I can't really talk about ones that I think are very bad. I'm just gonna leave off with my opinions of Fantasia 2000,
hell yeah, so good.
which I think is an absolute masterpiece.
It fucking is.
You know, the way they used classical music to depict the scenes and the themes in the scenes and all that. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Yeah, it's I think the way Sideways put it is that it was a film made for a score rather than a score made for a film.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
That's another thing that the first Fantasia was also a movie that didn't do that well financially. but like it's
Yeah.
remembered as like like a really well regarded film in terms of like how where it stands in like regards to its critical reception nowadays.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's like the big thing you got to remember is that was made, I think, just before or during the animators' strike at Disney. And that really messed up Disney for a long while. Just like Walt was having to deal with that, and like several of his friends getting killed in polo of
Oh,
all
man.
things. Oh yeah, no, like the time where Walt Disney like came up with the idea for like Disney World and stuff like that was like a super depressing time for him. Like he had lost his spark creatively. His animation studio hated him. There was just a lot of tension. It's actually where you get a lot of the stories about him being like super anti-Semitic and whatnot actually arises from, was this really
I was about to
dark
ask, is that the
period.
point where he started like blaming stuff on the Jews?
Well, no. Like those stories have been exaggerated. From what we could tell, he did hate communists a lot.
Well,
And that's who he
I know that. I know he
Yeah.
hated it. I know he was
Yeah,
a very well, of course, because he ran a huge company, so of course he's going to be like take
Well-
the side of like capitalism and go against like the enemies of America at the time.
Well, you
so
also have to remember he was also like super patriotic, and like you have to remember like in the 20s, especially, there was a major Red Scare that kicked up that we don't really remember. There were actual like anarchist terrorist attacks in the United States. There was a big shooting at a parade. There was communist bombings going off. So like the Red Scare in the 50s is nothing compared to the 20s. We just don't remember that because prohibition was a thing. And
That's
that was
true.
what all historians really focused on. But getting
and World War I was a thing.
oh yeah, no, that we have to also remember World War I was the thing that really kicked off a lot of those
The best of the World Wars.
oh yeah, the best. The sequel's complete trash.
100%.
No offense, trash.
Yeah. Okay.
So we haven't had Archer talk
Yeah.
about his favorite.
Let's
Yeah.
move on.
All right, so there were two movies that I wanted to talk about in terms of like which ones are my favorites. The first one is Hunchback, which I've mentioned before, and because like in a sort of similar vein to The Black Cauldron, Hunchback was a really dark movie. It's nowhere near as dark as the Victor Hugo novel, but like for a kids movie made by like the company that are like the kings of like kids movies, like Hunchback was dark.
Oh,
it featured
yeah.
like a protagonist who was like mentally and physically abused by his like caretaker. Was done in a very subtle kind of way. Well, more subtle than it like seems at first glance. Like because Frollo didn't just like physically assault like Quasimodo on screen, at least not just in the beginning. Like what he did was he mentally fixed him into believing that like there is nobody fight him except for like him.
Mhm.
He like made him dependent on him and made him like dependent on like the kind of life that he like forced upon him.
Right.
And like not to mention like the villain Frollo was. Frollo starts off the movie by like killing like Quasimodo's mother and then trying to drop him as a baby into a well and only only stopping doing so out of like fear of the hand of coming to bite him. Like and Hellfire is like even like crazier when it goes the animation in that scene is like astoundingly like introspective. The song a Disney villain like pining about lust. That's not a thing that you like get in a lot of Disney movies. Like a Disney villain like pontificating on like their dark ambitions and desires and how it's destroying them inside and talking about the lengths they will go to like end the pain that they're in. That is a really like uncharacteristic of Disney to like talk about.
Yeah.
Oh
100%.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
not to mention when you also compare it with the original play of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, like they really leaned into how dark the villain was. Like yeah, like they the Disney version is actually like even worse, like in the sense of how dark he is as a villain, which was a really interesting choice. I think it might have been for runtime because there's a lot more characterization that goes into the play version of the villain's name is escaping me. Frollo?
Frollo.
Yeah, Frollo.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Like that's yeah. It's really weird. I personally think it was probably that they wanted to focus on other things. They couldn't give Frollo the screen time for that. So they leaned more into that. And I felt like that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm
The other
gonna
movie that I really wanted to talk about like was Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph, I think, was a bit of an underrated like movie. I mean, it made a ton of money and like it got a lot of like reception. When you think about like the new age Disney movies, people talk about like your Tangleds and your Frozens and your
Moana.
like, Zootopias, but like Wreck-It Ralph, I think, kind of slides under the radar as like a really, really good movie that like that probably had no business being as good as it was. Like it featured like a story about like a person who's like feels trapped in like the life they're in, feels like trapped by their circumstances, who like is made to believe that they are nothing but their job, by nothing but like the thing that they do, and goes on like an introspective journey to try and prove that wrong, but ultimately learns that like he is to an extent the things that he does, but one, that's not what defines him as a person, and two, the thing that defines him as a person is like the things that he loves and the things that like he has found a way to care for in his life. The like I'm a sucker for stories that are like about finding meaning in life and finding like the little joys of life, and Wreck-It Ralph does that like really well, and does that through a medium that I think like it's similar to Toy Story in that sense, where it does so through a medium of like humanizing and personifying like inanimate objects, and by like showing the human experience through something that is distinctly inhuman. And I think like Toy Story, it does a really good job of like showing and like telling different stories about the human condition and about how to like become like fuller, better people.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have not seen Wreck-It
Okay.
Ralph, but I've only heard the good things about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wreck-It Ralph is amazing. Like it's kind of subtly amazing. Like it does a lot of like good and interesting things, but it doesn't really like put them all on the surface. Like on a surface level, it's a story about like a video game villain trying to prove that he's not just a video game villain, and ultimately like proving that through a way that he didn't expect, by like finding like friends and finding like relationships that he's like good at, as opposed to just getting external gratification from like the people that kind of hated him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I get what you mean. I watched, that was another one of those movies that I watched out in like theaters when it first came out, and I was like, this is really solid. Like even as a kid, I was like, this is really good. And you know, as an adult, I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, this is good. So a lot of you guys. So I'm gonna bring up a couple of movies that I personally really love. None of which are like the super popular ones, because I could talk about those, but I'd rather approach this from a different angle, because I could talk about, you know, Aladdin or whatnot, because I love Aladdin. I think it's a great movie.
It is.
But I'd say the movies that I think of, I'm gonna bring up a few. The first one I'm gonna bring up is The Emperor's New Groove, because
Yes,
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually wanted to talk about that, but I was like afraid of taking too much time. But I
think-
love Emperor's New Groove so much.
I think that movie
It's
is so good and so funny, and it comes in this really weird place where for those of you that don't know, the movie originally started out as something else. It started out as Kingdom of the Sun, I believe, and
It was a
supposed to
lot
be-
darker in the original cut,
Yep.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it was
so.
it was supposed to be more akin to a musical, like they had been doing,
Right.
and I believe Sting was doing the music at the time for it, which was really funny. in my
What?
opinion. Yeah,
The Sting?
Sting did the music for it, and
Sick.
if you even want to like look further into it, on the original soundtrack there is some music from the original version of the film on the soundtrack they put on. For example, there is a song that Eartha Kitt, who is
Snuff Out the Light, like
Snuff
her
Out the
villain
Light.
song.
And
That's a really good song.
It is an amazing song. It is so good. It is such a distinct song in like Disney's catalog of like music, just with how it's like with the instrumentals and the vocals and everything. It is so good. And I mean, I think that The Emperor's New Groove is like partially how you do comedy, but I think that like it doesn't really represent Disney as a whole and how like what in my opinion makes a really good Disney movie. I think it's a really good comedy, but part of what makes a Disney movie so great to me is the idea of weaving together not only the musical aspects, but also being able to incorporate animation as a medium and using it to your advantage to enhance everything that's on the screen.
Exactly.
And the movie that I think does it is about as good as any other movie is Tangled. I think Tangled is a phenomenal film, and I think it doesn't get a lot of love it deserves because it was in that really weird time where
We weren't sure what Disney was doing.
Yeah, where you weren't really sure because it was coming off the heels of The Princess and the Frog, which I think is a good movie too. But
we stand Prince Naveen, the class traitor.
Yeah, like there was this oh shit, that's really
Oh shit.
that's really cool. There's so the way it was coming off the heels of that, and then you still had Pixar, who was basically like rising up through the ranks and basically starting to rival Disney in terms of like quality, even though they were basically owned by the same company at this point. And I believe that while Chicken Little was the first CG movie that they did, Tangled was like the first one where it was like you could tell that they had like Pixar's help behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And to
Tangled
me,
was the first one where they cared.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful film with the colors pop. It's bright. The music is phenomenal. Like I think I've Got a Dream is such a great song. It's such a great musical number. And then finally, the last thing I'll say, it's funny. It's a very funny movie. It is
really
like
is.
It is a legitimately hilarious movie, and you don't think about that when you're like you don't think about that when you think of Tangled. When you think about it more and more, you're like, yeah, this was a really funny movie.
That's why they got Zachary Levi to play the male lead, is because like he is a notoriously funny man.
Zachary Levi is hilarious. I think it is so great that he's basically reprised the role in like every single spinoff, including Kingdom Hearts.
They got him. They got both. They got both of the like lead actors to be in the TV show for the entire run.
Yeah.
And I think that's like actually amazing. They got these like big name actors to not only be in the movie, but to be in the TV show for like how long was it? 5 seasons?
It was like 3-4 seasons. And like it really speaks to the quality of just like a Tangled as a whole, especially considering that from what I know, because I never watched it, but from what I know, people talk about the Tangled TV show and they're like, yeah, this is pretty good. Like they don't talk about it in like, they don't say that it's like, oh, this is like the Hercules TV show or the Lilo and Stitch TV show, which I think both have their own moments. But I hear people talk about the Tangled TV show in a positive light. I think that does a lot to like for what the franchise as a whole really is. And the last movie I'm going to talk about, I'm only going to briefly touch upon this because I want to get into talking about the TV show since we're on the topic. I want to talk about the Jungle Book just because I think Jungle Book, great, phenomenal movie. Louis Prima's music in that is great. And even though they were reusing animation basically for a huge chunk of the movie, I still think it's just a really fun time and the music's great. And one of my favorite little bits of trivia, the vultures in that movie were supposed to be voiced by the Beatles. And
What?
the only reason
you can tell that based on their designs that they're all like
Oh.
designed after the
Yeah,
Actually.
Beatles.
yeah, true.
they're all designed like them, and the voice actors that even got to end up playing them in the end are trying to do their best impressions of it. And even the part where they start harmonizing toward the end of the song, you can kind of tell it's very Beatles inspired.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's just
really interesting. Did it just fall through, or was this? Oh wait, was this when the Beatles broke up?
no. This was when the Beatles were huge. It was a scheduling conflict.
Okay.
It was
All
just
right.
so another little bit of trivia, just because I have this all stored in my head because I have countless hours looking this shit up for no reason. In The Lion King, it was the hyenas were originally supposed to be voiced by Cheech and Chong, but I think Cheech Marine was there. Chong couldn't do it because of a scheduling conflict, and that's the reason why they brought Whoopi Goldberg in the first place.
Okay.
But it was like a huge scheduling conflict thing. Like Disney's kind of notorious for like bringing people back together, like who are like really well-known groups. And honestly, it works as like this really great marketing gimmick that just kind of like ends up really playing out in like real time really well. But anyways, I'm gonna stop talking about movies because I could go on for hours talking.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I want to talk about the TV shows because I think the TV shows also bring a really good avenue for discussion.
Wait, real quick,
yes.
before you move on to that, I just wanted to say that Disney for me growing up was all about the musicals, and I'm completely 100% on board when you said that like Disney's about animation bringing out like the best and things that you can't do in live action for like musical structured stories. So, you know, my favorites are like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Mulan. I think that's just a personal favorite though.
A lot of those Renaissance movies.
Yeah, a lot of those Renaissance movies. And I Roman mentioned like Atlantis and Treasure Planet. I'm a huge fan of those too, but it's weird because in my head it's like those are great movies, but I never thought of them as Disney movies. Disney movies for me like inspired a huge love of musicals. And you know, I love like I went to like New York to see Hamilton and stuff like that. I love musicals. So yeah, Disney, I think it's really awesome that they're bringing back the whole focus on musical stories, and then they're also like doing it in 3D animation, stuff like that.
Yeah, no,
I'm
I mean,
a big fan of that.
Yeah, no, I mean when you think of like stuff like that, the way you talk about it, you think a lot of Alan Menken, you think a lot of Howard Ashman and whatnot, and you think about how they basically took Disney and were basically just like, we're just going to make Broadway plays and we're going to use animation to make that work better.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it worked out fantastically.
Oh, it worked out amazingly. So now. Oh, what do you want to say?
It's interesting because like I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum as Eli. I don't like musicals all that much. Like I'm not a big fan of musicals, but here's the interesting thing though. Because I grew up watching Disney movies a lot, even though I didn't like the musical segments, that's impacted how I write and how I actually create things. Because a lot of the times when I'm thinking in my head, there's a soundtrack going on behind it, and it's almost rhythmic. The scene is progressing in a musical way, where things are rising and falling according to the music that's happening. So like, even though I didn't like musicals all that much, I think Disney movies weirdly impacted me in that way of how I actually write and think how things should flow. So that's a bit of an interesting thing and a quirk that I'd actually ask you guys if that's something you've noticed whenever you are writing or creating. Has that actually have any impact on you, especially Eli, who's really big fan of musicals and whatnot?
So essentially what you're asking is like, how has musical like structure and storytelling influenced how you write?
Yeah, like, has that impacted you on how you actually create?
Okay.
I can 100% say for certain that it has for me.
Yeah, I can say that it has for me too. I think the big concept in musicals that affects how I create stuff is that the whole like modus operandi, right, behind musicals is when a character can't express something by talking, they have to sing it. And when they can't express it just by singing it, they have to dance it. And with that in mind, for me, it informs a lot of things, right? So it informs this like separation of if this character is doing this specific thing, you can't just communicate that through the most, how do I put this, boring way possible. right? If if in musicals, characters, when they feel strongly about something, have to sing it, then when I write, I tend to find myself not necessarily them singing it, having them sing it, but more so having them do some sort of different action that I choose to my own, liking in my own medium. So, yeah, I think that expressiveness and that sort of kind of over the top, a little bit theater-ish sort of quality that musicals always have is something that I definitely take a lot of.
To bounce off of that too, I don't think I've told many of you guys this, and for anyone listening, this might come as a little bit of a shock. But with Pariah, one of the original ideas I had was making it into a musical.
Dude, that's sick.
And
Wow.
now the way I thought about it working wouldn't be that it'd be like a musical on Broadway or anything, but it'd be a musical in the sense of it being on TV, and for every episode there's at least one song. And my whole thing is I don't know how to write music. However, one of the things I can say is that part of the reason why I thought about doing it was because a lot of the characters, the way I wrote them, a lot of them were really inspired by these ideas of just like tragedy and it being played out on like the grandest stage possible. And to me, the grandest stage you can possibly have is Broadway. True. And it shows with a lot of the characters in the series. And I think the best example I can give you of it is Giselle, who's basically the quote unquote main antagonist. And the reason why I say that is because for me, and I alluded this before and Eli brought it up, to me, Disney is about taking animation and utilizing it alongside the music to make spectacle, something grand. And the whole idea and the whole thing with Giselle is that, she controls darkness and she controls shadows. And the whole thing I wanted to do with her was for the musical segments that she had, because I wanted to give her quite a few, because I think villain songs are very, very good. And I think giving more songs to villains is a good thing. What I wanted to do with a lot of her music and songs was I wanted to have the animation playing around with the shadows that she controls and whatnot, and making like shadow puppets and the like. And I thought that'd be a really interesting way of just expressing certain things and showing different things. But that's my little tangent. It's definitely inspired me. We definitely probably should wrap this up.
Yeah.
So,
I think in that vein, like Trash, you would get a kick out of like the DreamWorks Sinbad movie, because it has like the villain in that movie. It like does a lot of like the stuff that you described in terms of like really good like visualizing what they're doing. I don't know if they have any songs, but they do. But in terms of like speaking through the animation and doing a lot of like creative things with movements. That's a good movie that like gives a lot of inspiration for how to like write good villain moments, I guess.
Yeah,
just a good way to describe it.
DreamWorks does it really well. I mean, just I love
Shrek.
I love Prince of Egypt. I think it's phenomenal, and that's part of the reason why.
Prince of Egypt is great. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we're gonna wrap up this talk on movies just for now, and I think we're gonna let Ever take the stage and start talking about some of the things that he brought to show us. Just because, as Eli said, we were about like 42 minutes in. Time flies when you are having fun.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So if anyone wants to unmute him and let him talk and let him show us what he brought, I think it'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
We should just attempt give him the WST stuff, I suppose.
Yeah. How would that work? Just because I don't know how the editing stuff.
Yeah. So I give him the staff. Ever, can you?
He has
come back real
to
quick?
disconnect.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Hello.
Hey. Oh.
Hello.
Okay.
Welcome to the podcast.
All right then. What do you want to look at first? The dad's office, his library.
Well, real quick, why don't you give
So
the
introduce yourself.
Like first,
Yeah.
like this is Ever, and
This is Ever Faithful.
Introduce
I'm
yourself.
the-
Talk about what you're doing in the
I'm
in the
the
server.
son
and, like,
of the I'm the son of a former Disney artist. Because if you haven't heard about it already, my dad has been working for Disney for the past for 30 years altogether, and and all the movies, The Lion King to The Princess and the Frog, he worked on. And The Princess and the Frog was his last movie because Disney fired him for being too old, and that was when they started transitioning to 3D animation.
Which movie did he start off on again? I think you cut out when you said that.
The first movie was The Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, he was there throughout the entirety of the Renaissance.
Yeah.
basically.
For the
and the
entirety
craziest
of
thing
the
is,
Renaissance.
he got the job by complete accident. He just happened to meet a Disney recruiter,
Wow.
and he was fresh out of college too.
That's crazy.
What did he go to college for?
He went to the Art College of Pasadena in California.
Oh, Pasadena. I see.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's a very elite college.
Yeah.
And he went for art.
Yeah, he went for art.
That's
in
cool.
like a similar vein to like Cal Arts and whatnot.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah, maybe.
Very cool.
I thought Cal Arts was a tech school.
That's
All
called
right.
So, do you want to like stream it, or you're just gonna like send photos? How do you
I
plan on
have
doing this?
I have the photos, but I would have streamed if I knew how to stream it.
On Discord, you should be able to.
You should. I don't think. So I've done this before. To view the stream, I think we'd have to join it. So we'd have to restart the call.
Oh.
So it might just be easier for us to just get photos.
Yeah, I already got the photos
Yeah.
Sounds
because I
good.
didn't know how to do the
Yeah.
stream.
So go ahead and send one, talk about it, and then send the next.
All right, which one to
Yeah.
go first? Do first. Do you want the office, the library, the movie collection?
We'll start
Whatever
with
you wanna talk
yeah,
about, man.
whatever. Let's start with the office, I suppose.
I think the office would be a good place to start, just to like
All right.
as a basis.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. This is where he used to work
Wow.
at home when he got laid off for 10 years. When he moved to Texas.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So he'd work from home.
Oh, no, he didn't work at all. So he just did his own
Oh.
stuff.
Okay.
And then he got fired again by a animation studio that lost a lot of money after two bombed films.
Oh man.
Ooh, that sucks.
So what kind of stuff are like in this office? Just like
Toys.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
Toys,
toys
all
that
the
aren't
toys.
there.
No, so it's
Jesus.
These are the new toys. These are
So
his
they-
new toys.
I was about to say you got Doraemon in there. You
Yeah,
got-
These
Doraemon.
things-
That's
Are
it.
these things he bought or things he
Yeah,
received?
all the things he bought
Okay.
with his own money.
I feel like having like a models like this is pretty helpful for an animator, right? Like you just get to see proportions.
Yeah, he was a 2D artist, a background artist.
Okay.
When you see the trees and the buckets and the brick walls, that was his work.
Oh, cool.
So
Interesting.
I know, especially on some of Disney's very old animation projects, backgrounds were painted onto glass panes. How did you know if he had like a program that he used? Like,
No.
how did he animate?
What he actually did was that he was the pre. He literally drew everything by hand.
Oh,
He was in
interesting.
this station where he had to draw everything. He was basically the concept artist.
Wow.
Okay.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
from what
So
I
he
from
was
what
the
I
sketch
know,
guy.
From what I know, Disney didn't fully move to doing stuff on computers until after Princess and the Frog, if I'm
Yeah,
correct, right?
yeah. And my dad, he pretty much self-taught himself how to do things on computer, and he has a few more pictures of what he has.
It's pretty dope.
He's a huge fan of Studio Ghibli, so that's
Oh,
he
dude.
has a lot of Pocoroso and
Oh.
Totoro.
Aren't we?
Yeah,
What's his
aren't we
favorite
all?
Ghibli movie?
Totoro, my neighbor Totoro.
Oh yeah, that's a
figured-
huge
I figured.
Totoro up there.
That's like an animation like showcase. It's finest.
Yeah, I
100%.
think his second favorite was my either Pocoroso or
Porco Rosso, dude.
delivery service.
Porco
The
Rosso.
soundtrack for Porco Rosso.
Oh yeah, Kiki's
I'd
dope.
rather
man.
be
That's a good movie.
I'd rather be a pig than a Nazi. This is my favorite line in that whole movie.
No, he's not a big fan of Star Wars. He just likes Lego Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, everyone loves Lego Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're also
Regardless of your
forbidden to
opinion of
talking
regular
about.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Lego Yoda death sound effects? Question mark.
Star Wars is off the table.
Oh yeah, and
Lego Star Wars
if you
is
haven't
always
noticed,
on the
that's
table.
the Batmobile. That's the Batmobile. Oh, funny thing is,
Is that Titanfall and Wolfenstein right there?
Yes, that's the sketch art book of the Wolfenstein.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
He has Wolfenstein: The New Order and Wolfenstein: The Colossus.
That's so cool.
So I also noticed in one of these pictures there's a Fooly Cooly Pop figure in here, which leads me to ask the question. I'm assuming he also consumes anime too.
Yes. He says back in his day, he and his friends call it Ami as slang.
Amy.
Amy?
Yeah, that was what they called anime back then. Back in his day when he was pretty much our age.
Wow.
Back in my day, we called it Amy. We had to get it via fanzines and pirated VHSs.
We had to meet someone in
Oh,
the
yeah,
back
funny thing
alley
is,
to trade Blu-rays.
You know the newest Death Star from Lego that costs $800?
Yes.
Yeah.
My dad basically bought a black market version of from China that cost like half that price.
Yo, I think that's the play,
And
isn't it?
this is such a huge hypocritical moment for my dad because he's such a strict anti-communist.
Hey, well, they're opening up their markets, so
Well, I mean,
Hey, he was doing what a smart capitalist does. He was going through the free market and deciding which was the most cost efficient way to get what he wanted.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what a good capitalist does.
The Lego monopoly on Lego shall not stand undivided.
Yeah,
So-
okay, I think pretty much that's all the pictures I have for the office. What do you want to try out next?
So this is all his stuff.
Yeah, all his stuff. Everything he bought with his own money.
Yeah, because I'm looking through a lot of just like what he has here, just to kind of like get an understanding of like, you know, who he is, an understanding of where he gets his inspiration from. And there's some really interesting things that I find in here, because, you know, to me at least, when I
if you
think
go
of,
look at the first picture on top, the first picture of the three, if you see that submarine in the background, that's a paper model.
A paper model?
okay.
Yeah, the submarine behind that red Ferrari Lego.
Yeah.
Yeah, he entered a contest in that and he got third place.
Ooh,
He made that
that's
from
cool.
hand.
Ooh.
Yeah, paper model.
So that's self-design.
That's so cool.
I think it's self-design. I don't know. My dad does self-design his own paper models though, so maybe.
Yeah, because like my whole thing is I'm taking a look at this, and one of the things that I find really interesting is because when I think a lot about Disney, I think that Disney has a very distinct style, and you can make the argument of whether or not that Disney kind of inbreeds that style and kind of tries to stick to that, because a lot of Disney movies don't really try and stray away from it, and it's become a huge topic of like discussion and whatnot. However, one of the things I find really interesting is that your dad worked on Disney, but then I see he's got art books for, you said, Wolfenstein. I noticed Valkyria Chronicles in here. I noticed Titanfall.
Yeah.
And I want to say, is that Metal? There's something, the Art of ME. I don't know. Is that like, I want to say Metal Gear, but like also I don't want to say Metal Gear because
That's Rick and Morty.
Got it. Okay.
The Art of Rick and not the Art of Rick and Morty. That's basically that is the Art of Rick and Morty.
The one
That's
next to
literally everything from like season 1 to season 3.
The one next to Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wow.
No, that's the one next. That's the one next to Titanfall.
What's the one next to Wolfenstein?
Oh, that's his actual art sketches. It basically says, "What did Alan Tam do in Texas besides eating barbecue and getting fat?" And that's literally all the sketches he did for that new movie studio that got closed down. Like 800 pages of his sketches.
Okay.
Wow.
That's yeah. No, I just find it really interesting that you don't really think about it, especially like when you're a well-established artist. You think about how you very much have a style and you have a routine that you follow, but art's very much about taking inspiration from all aspects and trying to incorporate it into your own to kind of evolve, enhance, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really, and I just found it really interesting that for someone who worked with Disney for as long as he did, there's a lot of other inspiration here, and there's a lot of Japanese media, and there's a lot of foreign media as a whole. And I think it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. So.
Do you have anything else you want to show?
Real quick,
you want to see my dad's old? You want the library or his toy room?
Let's go to the library.
Yeah,
first.
library.
Yeah.
Real quick, Ever, could you also give some context on what he did after Disney?
Nothing. He did absolutely nothing. He literally had a midlife crisis because he didn't want to retire, and Disney just simply kicked him out.
You mentioned something about. Wow, that's crazy. But you also mentioned something about Rick and Morty.
Yeah. after 10 years of being unemployed and after being unemployed by Disney and then by that studio closing down, he just managed to snatch a job at Rick and Morty, and he managed to start working on it in season 3.
Very cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty dope.
that's sick.
Yeah, he described his experience as complete opposite of Disney. He said that the stuff he drew for Disney, the stuff he drew for Rick and Morty is the stuff that Disney would never allow him to draw. He says that even his own grandmother, if his own grandmother saw what he was drawing, she would literally pull him out of the office and tell him that he won't work for them.
Sayo brings up an excellent question of was it the same work or was he doing something different?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the studio RealFX?
Yes, I have.
What
Yeah,
did they
you
do?
know that it closed down.
I haven't, but why don't we give us a quick explanation real quick?
Yeah, it's basically RealFX it's a small independent movie studio trying to basically make it to the big leagues.
I see.
Okay.
And 2 movies that you probably recognize is Free Birds and The Book of Life.
Mm.
Oh.
And those movies bombed.
right.
Those movies were failures, and the
Yeah.
company was supposed to close down.
Okay.
And then Rick and Morty.
Yeah, and then Rick and Morty. But after the studio closed down, it was 4 years of unemployment.
So what does he do exactly for Rick and Morty? Like character designs or background art?
Same thing as before.
Background
Background.
art? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the guy that draws the cups and the props, but he's also the guy that drew the design of vampire truck in this later seasons.
And how does it work, or how does it different in terms of work from what he did with Disney? Like in terms of how he drew, does he still hand draw and then somebody else puts it into a computer? Like, how exactly is that?
That's the one thing I do not know for sure because my dad's in California, so I never actually saw my dad at work now. So, but I like to think he does it by hand drawn, but I can guarantee you, the stuff he did send a picture of what other people were drawing. Boy, there's a lot of dick pics.
It is
So the
Rick and
exact
Morty,
same as
so-
Disney.
Yeah.
Exact
Oh,
opposite.
Yeah.
It's the same as Disney, but less subtle.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
in both jobs, with a scene, right? You have lots of changing aspects in the background and foreground. Was he, when he was doing these sketches, was he alone doing a full sketch of a full background? Did he work with other people? How exactly did that?
I don't know how. My dad hasn't explained to me his workspace in Rick and Morty, but he did tell me what it was like working for Disney. You see, in the Disney workplace, you'll meet a lot of he describes it, colorful people. But at the same time, there's a lot of corporate politics.
Uh-huh.
Very bloody corporate politics.
Mm-hmm.
I
he's-
imagine.
He remembered he had a fellow employee. He was super secretive of his
of his work?
he was super secretive. Like he will literally use his own face to literally cover everything up. Like no one could even tell what he was drawing because he was just keeps hiding it.
We found the guy
Keeps,
who
like-
drew the penis in the Mermaid cover.
And there was another guy that was pretty much treating his drawings like a Mona Lisa. Like he was putting more detail than what was actually required, and he had like practically using a microscope to basically put the details in.
Dang.
And my dad says that for a Disney artist, don't bother trying to put some Easter eggs in there, because Disney literally has its own department dedicated to spotting Easter eggs.
Really?
And do not underestimate them, because he describes them to have the eyes of an eagle. No matter how subtle you think you are, they will immediately spot it,
Wow.
and you'll be sent back to do it all over again.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
man.
certain
that-
Disney's very meticulous about the product that it reveals. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
especially in animation, right? Because in live action stuff, you could find mess ups and things like a character going to sleep wearing one thing and waking up wearing something else. But
Yeah.
I think in animation, it's a lot easier to spot things that are not supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also in a way,
And,
like in animation, something has to actually be drawn to be there. So
Yeah.
there's a lot
It's
more
intent.
intentionality.
Like-
Yeah, exactly.
And also one more thing on the topic and the thing about the corporate politics. My dad told me a story when he saw someone getting the other end of a corporate sabotage.
Oh,
Basically, the story goes, there was basically a group meeting between all the artists, So everybody just left the station and just go to the meeting. And when it came back, one dude found his station, found the sketch he was working on for like the past few weeks, completely torn up by like a X-Acto knife.
Oh,
Like all that work just completely ruined. It was a corporate sabotage right there.
Jeez.
That's crazy.
Who are their competitors at the time?
Each other. They were competing
Really?
each other to
Really?
get the tough. Yeah, they want the higher paycheck.
Well, that's how it worked over there. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. It was basically corporate politics against each other. It was sabotage.
So all the animators basically had to compete with each other to get their art in the movie.
No, against each other.
Or yeah, against each other to get their
in
art
order
in
to
like
make it
this
to the
certain
top.
scene. Wow. Okay.
Mm.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Very interesting.
It's really nutty.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think my dad has experienced any form of corporate sabotage. It's maybe because he has stories about it. But yeah, I think my dad just learned how to keep his head down.
Probably.
Serious?
Yeah, because my dad isn't very ambitious. He's just very, very content being where he was.
I see.
It's fair.
So pictures of the library.
Okay. Do you want the assist? Yeah, never mind. I'm just gonna show them all.
Yeah, let's go with them all.
Library picks, please.
Yeah, please. I showed you my podcast. Please
pics.
respond.
I showed you the podcast.
All right. The left side, the one on top, that's his history section,
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay.
and the bottom one is all the anime section.
And what is that? A Messerschmitt?
Yeah, that's what he does.
front of
Yeah, all the artwork you see on top, he drew it.
What?
He did it.
Wow.
That's cool.
I see.
That's really cool.
Oh yeah, and you see that samurai helmet? He made that too. He made his own samurai armor out of paper mache.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
That's really cool.
And yeah, here's the section dedicated to art books too.
Wow.
You probably wouldn't see the actual name of the covers, but he has a lot of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
A
lot.
lot of Star Wars. Lord of the Rings, even.
See DreamWorks.
Is that Lord
but
of the Rings?
I can
but-
guarantee you, he probably has all the Disney art books.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Well,
It's a good
everything
eye. Yeah.
prior to Princess of Fong, he probably has.
Zack Snyder.
Cool.
Some Hobbit.
I'm sure it is like interesting to look at like the art of like these big budget like superhero movies and like
that's
and like
actually
the
the advice
fantasy
he gave
movies.
to my friend when he was becoming a cartoonist. His advice was to literally buy these art books and just read them. Just study how other people do it.
Yeah.
It's a good
I know.
idea.
I know. I don't own too many art books just because I've never been able to get them, and I feel really sad. I have a couple though. I have the art book.
These art books are very expensive, like a couple $100
Each?
each.
Wow.
I've got
The
them
art books that I have are the ones from like Sonic Mania and the new Shantae. I get them like it packaged with the game with the video games. I don't like
Yeah, he also has the art books of Halo too.
that would definitely be like a really interesting like art to like look at and study.
Halo, definitely.
I have the art book. For
Yeah,
the
I don't know
Kill
why my
Kill
dad
game.
bought it in Japanese. He just bought it because it's the Lord of the Rings art book. He doesn't even read Japanese.
I have the Kill game art book. I have the art book for Steins Gate.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for Steins Gate Elite specifically.
Oh, Steins Gate's very simple, but it's a very like
It's
interesting aesthetic.
It's
just
effective.
super
That's
interesting
what
read.
it's like it delivers its information, and that's what I think like a lot of these like kind of art books are like good at is about like giving you like it's about how well they deliver information
Mhm.
is in terms of like designs and like because I'm not an artist, I'm like a writer, so I look at it in terms of okay, what is their like design gonna say about like
About the
this world
character.
or these characters
Yes.
or
Definitely. And I can tell that in your like scripts too.
yeah.
I had I also have one for Valkyria Chronicles 4, and then my biggest treasure in terms of art books is the complete art book for Fire Emblem Awakening.
Oh wow.
Ooh, that's
Awakening.
interesting.
You got some Lucina
That-
pics in there?
I do actually, and Lucina's original designs are really cool.
Oh really?
There's some really good ones in there. But yeah,
Ah.
I like
I
how
gotta
you,
take more pictures.
I like how you talked about character design telling you know, a story in of itself. Because I had this conversation with someone the other day, and they didn't agree with me about character design having purpose and intention, and I was like, bro, no. Like, it was one of those things where it was like, where they basically asked me for an example of like what I would say character designs are. And I basically I basically picked one out, and I was basically just like gave my entire thoughts on why it was a certain way, just to kind of give a certain explanation, but they didn't really get it. They didn't really get it, and they didn't really want to get it. But I think that's a very important thing to point out, that character design always has a purpose, and there's always something they're trying to tell you when they show you.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
I do think that, like, because I think about this in very like important, in very like in ways of this is how I like write like I draw storyboards when I'm gonna like draw my comic, and because I don't do the actual art because I don't have the ability, but I draw like in terms of, okay, how much information do I need to give to my audience? What's the most efficient way to deliver that information?
Mhm.
And how can I make that information interesting to like absorb and understand? And I think am I right in saying that that's like a thing that artists like tend to think about in
Okay,
terms
I'm
of
back.
I think
Yeah.
All right,
No.
ready to move on?
Real quick, let's answer Archer's question.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, Elijah.
I mean, I'm not an artist, so I can't really say. I think, Ever, do you think that, like, with regards, at least either from your experience or your dad's experience, how like efficiency and stuff and design is told, like how it aids character development and stuff like that? Because that's basically what
Wait,
Archer's asking.
Wait, can you explain that? Can you explain what you mean by that?
Archer?
Well, what I mean is basically like how when I'm drawing storyboards or when I'm like plotting a script, I think the one thing that I'm thinking of most is like, okay, there's a certain amount of information that I need to portray, like, and it's going to be done visually. So how do I so I think of what information do I want to portray? What's the most efficient way to portray it? And how do I make that information interesting and entertaining to absorb by my audience? Am I right in saying that that's something that like other artists think about?
You wanna know how to make a storyboard or how to make it?
No,
more
I'm saying like do other artists think of like they're drawing their art in terms of how to convey information to people?
Well, that's a tough one because I have no experience in that one. And my dad, given his position, he wasn't part of the storyboard. He's the guy that you just turn to if say you want a tree. If he says I want a tree, you just turn to my dad and says, "Okay, I'll draw you a tree." So he had no part in basically storyboarding or any of those type of stuff. Because he was just one of those. He's just one part of the background crew.
Mm-hmm.
I think from my own opinion, trying to answer the question directly, is that if you have a visual medium, right, in art, then I think your goal as an artist creating that visual medium would be to make it so a reader or whatever is understanding the story, understanding the scene just through the visual. Like
100%.
if you can tell the story just through the visuals, no dialogue, no text, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like show don't tell, except to an extreme standard. It's the same thing except in art. You want to tell that story with as little dialogue as possible. And I think when I've seen movies or TV shows or all sorts of animation, that's what really captures me, is when I can tell what a scene or a character is feeling just by seeing it.
Uh-huh.
And that's something that I
Yeah.
think has also very much depends on like the medium that you're portraying, because like I've seen like I've like looked at like comparisons between like how your typical anime is made, and how you're something like Looney Tunes or something like Hanna-Barbera, like Tom and Jerry cartoons, some like, because the latter cartoons are very much oriented in like build, because they're all done visually. They're done. I mean, the Looney Tunes do have dialogue, but they're designed to act and portray as much information as possible. Like if you had like the animation on mute, if you weren't listening to the like dialogue and like the sound effects, you would still have a very good understanding of what's going on in a given scene, because they're a lot simpler.
Right.
Like when you watch like modern cartoons or anime, there usually is more information that you have to like portray. So it does come down to like needing more dialogue, and also to having less like funding or time to really focus all in on the animation, because obviously the animation is expensive and time consuming. So you want to be able to make as much of your product as you can while also keeping it a good quality. So you kind of up the like level of dialogue, the level of still frames.
You balance it out.
There's going to be a balance to that. You have to make sure, and so it depends on like what kind of medium you're writing in and what kind of story you're trying to tell.
Right. My experience in visual mediums is I'm a photographer as well, and
that helps.
Yeah. So I think I find it really, I never really talk about visual mediums, and I find myself like feeling like I don't necessarily have much to say with regards to it, even though I'm a photographer. I think it's because the show not tell aspect and things like that happen with photography is very different, right? Because you're actually capturing something that physically exists. You're capturing a representation of something that's actually there. Though there's the concession that, the camera lens is not identical to the human vision. That's really the first thing when it comes down to trying to make art out of photography. And really a lot of what a photographer is saying when it comes to a photo is beside and beyond the subject, beside and beyond what is in the frame. It has a lot to do with, why did this photographer capture this on a long lens with a short focus? Why did this photographer capture this wide up close? Things like that. And a lot of that is very nuanced, and a lot of that is very specific to photography. And so to answer that question about intent and showing/telling, my experience in the visual medium is that you're more tasked with creating not necessarily a plot, but a tone with your visual medium. As far as photography goes, right? If you take this photo that's like this like weird outshot of like on a long lens with a character only filling with a subject only filling 1/3 of it, you have a lot more time to sit there and think. There's a lot more empty space. Why does it look like this? Why is this focused like this? Why is it blurred like this? Stuff like that. Questions like that get answered by the method, and that creates, if not a subconscious, then a very low key tonal effect on the actual finished product. One of the best pieces of information or advice that I've ever gotten, and I always think it's really good. It's simple and it sounds a little foolish, but I like it. That you should always if you're going to copy from anyone, copy from the best, because that's usually they're doing it right. Yep.
And just to kind of just throw in my own like little bits and pieces of information. One of my favorite things that I like to do is I really try and make an effort to go and look into the production side of things for certain series that I really like and do. And granted, I've kind of fallen behind on it in the anime side of things, just because I'm working in a foreign market, and that's a little bit harder to do for me. But right now, one of my favorite studios doing work right now is Studio Orange. And Studio Orange are the people that are responsible for the Land of the Lustrous anime,
right,
and for the Beastars anime.
Yes.
Oh, Beastars.
They have a Twitter account, and right now what they've been doing very frequently is doing like a behind the scenes kind of thing on Twitter of just showing you different ways that they like rig models, different art and whatnot for the series. And it's just really interesting, especially considering how the show is made, because we were just talking about right now about how certain art and whatnot is done, and like how characters are drawn to convey certain things. Beastars was made with by them writing the scripts first. They didn't animate anything.
Mhm.
They wrote out the entire script first, had them all like every single episode, had them voice act every single episode before they even started to animate.
I see.
And they built the entire series around those performances, and it's part of the reason why I think it's one of the best anime adaptations I've ever seen, especially after reading the source material.
Mm.
It's just really solidly done the way they show and convey certain things, especially by using characters' voices.
I see.
And they do this by using different microphones for different scenes, so you get the voice sounding differently. Like certain scenes might sound a little bit more breathy, certain scenes might sound a little bit louder or softer because they're using a different mic to kind of get the feedback differently.
Interesting.
And they tailored it around that, and it's just different ways of how you can do show don't tell without you even realizing it.
Real quick.
Also-
Sorry, Volks, to cut you off, but
Yeah.
real quick to Seo has an answer to Archer's question as well.
I was gonna.
Yeah. So essentially, Seo is saying that it's really difficult to talk about intent and show and telling. He says it's mega tricky. It's really about what your intent is and your dedication to it. Show don't tell isn't necessarily a good thing just because it's done. And then he elaborates, show don't tell is a rule to go by when it'd be more interesting to show rather than tell. A character is saying that their father off screen is less compelling, or saying that is less compelling than seeing it for yourself. However, tell don't show is a similar tool that should be utilized when it's more interesting. It's all about the spice of entertainment. That's what I mean by it's not necessarily always a good thing. If you go in the mindset of I'll show everything and say nothing, you're throwing away a tool to go all in. They're both really good tools and should be both used. But ideally speaking, they should be done with intent to make things interesting and entertaining, not because someone else has done it, which goes right back to intent. Yeah, I definitely agree.
And I think that's what I
like
wanted to try and touch on is about when I draw something or when I write something, I'm writing it with the intent to convey information ultimately.
Right.
And that information can come in the sense of emotional revelations about a character, emotion on about plot details about introducing characters or introducing set pieces. But ultimately it all comes down to the audience needs to know or feel something, therefore I'm going to find an interesting way to show it to them.
Right.
Depict it,
Exactly.
Right.
I think the trade-off there is is efficiency versus effectiveness, right? Like showing something is not very efficient, but you will garner a much more emotional response for the things you do show. And then if you tell something, it's much more efficient. You can just say, bam, line of dialogue right there. That's told. And you don't even need to of course, it's not going to hold the same sort of emotional weight, but you need to do both, right? Because if you tell, if you tell everything, then your showing is just not going to one, it's not going to be there. And two, if you don't do it at all, then there's no variety and there's no impact, right? Because if you're underutilizing one aspect, it's naturally going to be more powerful when you do it. So you need to be cognizant of when you're doing what.
Yeah, and especially the one thing I wanted to touch on is that show don't tell even applies in non-visual medias as well. Especially I'm primarily a writer. I'm shite tier artist drawing. That's why I have Seo. So the thing that I've noticed though, and the thing that I can tell you from show don't tell is that in the fact that for writing, the big thing, especially when doing prose, is that you want to make sure that whatever you're writing on the page is relevant to what's happening in the story at the moment. I
Yeah.
think actually, again, going to the theme of sacrificing sacred cows, it's one of the things I don't like about George R.R. Martin. It's that and the fact that like whenever there is something mentioned that is like plot relevant, granted, he has to spend time then expounding upon that and why it's important, which is fine. The problem is that that is a pervasive thing through the entirety of Game of Thrones. We're never given a chance to actually like not just have it be told to us, but actually experience that to us firsthand by us reading the story. That's what I try to do, especially like with what I'm writing right now, is to make sure that I'm not necessarily just telling the readers something. I'm also showing them something visual to go along with it so that it feels more involved, that the plot is progressing instead of just stopping to talk about the exposition.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I view it from a writer's perspective. Because like I actually had a conversation with a friend about that, and his argument was that, well, you can't really show things in prose. You can only really tell things. I was just like, that's not necessarily true. You just gotta think in a more active sense whenever you're writing prose.
Mhm.
So that's kind of
I
my
think-
takeaway from it.
I think it's not an end all be all, and that's the thing that I feel like a lot of the writing world in general likes to say is like, oh, show don't tell, and I can fall into that same trap as well, and it's just something. You know, once you have experience, it's something that you can know, hey, I'm not going to use this, or hey, I'm going to use this. It's like it's all subjective. I think like all art is, you know, you just have to find that happy balance, regardless of your medium.
So we went on a little tangent there.
Yeah.
I think it was a good tangent,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
It was
yeah,
definitely
like,
a good tangent. We
well,
built upon stuff we were seeing.
Ever's been waiting very patient, so like we're
Yeah,
going
because
to like the
there's
last
actually
few
a lot more
clips
picks to
that
go
he has
through.
to show us.
Yeah.
Go for it, Ever.
So this is going to be his toy room, and believe me, this is the largest collection of pictures I have of it.
Ooh, I'm excited.
This is what it looks like when you enter it.
And you said it's a room of toys. That is
Yeah,
a
this is basically
huge
it's basically his room of toys. A lot of them are a lot older than me.
Jesus.
And that's just a Titan up there, isn't it?
Jeez.
And
Fuck.
what is that, an F-16 cockpit?
Bro, he's got some Gundams. Can you help me build my Lancelot?
I respect the
some of
Levi
these
print he's
toys
got up
are
there.
older
The
than
I do
me.
Levi.
too. The Levi figure up there is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really sick.
Yo.
And these are all of
Yeah.
his basically model magazines. They're more in the garage.
It's got those dolls in the top right.
Yeah,
That's
some
a
of these toys
lot
are
of
older than me.
Predators.
They were in his office before I was born.
Oh my.
That's a lot of Predators, but that's also a cool Guts figure.
That is a cool Guts figure. That is insane.
No, it's he's got a little Ray figure up there too. I didn't even realize that.
Ray?
Like, yeah, in the first picture of like the glass toy case up at the top. If you look in the back, you can see her above the Predators.
Ah. Let's see.
Anyway, we can like look for the
Yeah.
we can like find Ray and like when we're editing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eli, like, could you
Ooh.
just like circle it in red?
There's some really cool figures in here. That Cloud figure is really nice. The Radix figure is really cool. It's
Okay.
a really
That's
cool collection.
all
Of stuff.
could take. That's all I could take of the toy room. There's more in the living room. I take pictures of. You should see my dad's movie posters next.
Oh, I found the Ray.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And yeah, he has the Kerberos. I didn't know he knew. Kerberos
This is
anime.
so cool.
Panzer Cops.
Some Chun Li.
Oh, there's some really cool stuff in here. I like.
I've seen some
Yeah.
Shinro in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And I brought this up before too, and I didn't even think about this until like I'm seeing it in front of me. But the idea of an artist having so many figures, it makes so much sense in the grand scheme of things.
It does. It really does.
Like, I didn't think about this, and I'm just like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Cloud and his bike. That's sick.
Yeah, my dad gave me some of his toys, and they're currently in my room.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah, bunch of helicopters. Little toy tanks too.
Some kills.
Yeah, he you won't believe. I haven't bothered counting the movies. We have a lot.
That's understandable.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and see those posters in the background. I think my dad has the drawings he did. Those
ton.
Coca-Cola posters. I don't know if he actually did it or he just collected it.
They look really good.
Yeah, no, they look really cool.
I aspire to one day be able to like spend money on this kind of stuff that makes me happy the way your dad has been able to.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, and here's some Disney collectibles he has.
Dude, that random ass katana is for when the coronavirus zombies come along.
Those little, yeah. Oh yeah, those
The Homer
glass
telephone?
thingies. Those are the. I think those are the actual films.
Really?
The glass, yeah. Those,
Oh, those
frames.
those are frames. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
That's so
I think they're like 7. Yeah, there's 7.
They're probably the frames that he did. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, those swords. Yeah, those were for my grandfather. I think, yeah, I don't know if they're actually katanas, but I like to believe they are because they'll make my grandpa pretty badass because he fought in World War II against the Japanese.
It has the Suba and everything. It looks like a katana.
Yeah, I think the story goes is that he took them from the Japanese soldiers that he killed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he defended them because he was part of the defense of Hong Kong during World War II.
Oh, what? That's crazy.
That's really cool.
And I think we have 3 swords. Yeah, there's one in the living room,
Dude, pass one.
one in the garage, and one in his toy room.
Yeah,
Alright.
this is like a really like surprisingly, like this is a really motivating sort of like image set for me.
Yeah.
Because it's not only is it like really like it's showing like, oh, this is someone who's like really productive and has really like broken their way into like more or less the industry that I want to like work in. But it's also but it's also
reward,
like
you know?
managed to like put their reward towards something that like they love and
Yeah.
they are passionate about.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
Ooh.
also collected Disney posters.
Oh, dude.
these are really cool.
Oh yeah, and the bottom one, The Price of Freedom and The Monster in the Hill, that was actually designed purely by him. He thought of making his own movie.
Ooh.
Oh, that's cool.
That's so cool.
And The Price of Freedom, he actually it was actually based on his T-shirt, military T-shirt that says "Freedom isn't free," and it was like a bestseller in those military conventions.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same design of the helmet on the garage, just sticking the dirt, and "Freedom isn't free." It pretty much insta sells.
Gotcha.
Nice.
That's crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Just because.
Oh yeah, this is the best one for last.
Okay.
Wait, is this actually the last one? Oh wait, I forgot to show you about the Simpsons poster again. If you look closely, he has all their signatures.
Oh, hey.
Oh, he
That's
does.
actually pretty cool.
Yeah, like these. The thing is, I'm gonna inherit all of them, so
That's pretty dope.
because my sister has no desire to put these toys in the house. But yeah, these probably sure lots of these cost millions of dollars in the future.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, he is the actual prize. My dad's drawings for Mulan.
That's cool.
Oh, man, dude.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yep, the trees for Mulan. I used to thought they were from Tarzan, but these were for Mulan.
That's cool stuff.
It's good
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, these were drawn by Pastel.
Dude, your dad was a
The
swift
story
as a
goes is
coursing
that,
river.
that he was doing nothing but drawing these type of trees. That he would come home with blue fingers. And amazingly, these are his rejects. Disney it's basically in one of those processes where Disney had to basically redo the poor ones and go back to you had to pick the special ones, and these were in basically the trash bin. So my dad just went up, took them home.
So thank you, Ever, for sharing these pictures with us.
Yeah,
And
I think
talking a
this
little bit.
like brought on a really like good conversation. I think to that,
Absolutely. I think this was really great, and I loved seeing some of these things and just kind of realizing things that I didn't realize before, learn things about other people. If you ever meet me in real life, I'm one of those people. I very much like people watching. It's just fun for me. I like imagining and understanding things, and yeah, I thank you so much for sharing these pictures. It was
Yeah.
really fun having you,
Super insightful.
and it was really insightful, as they said.
Yeah, still more pictures of my dad toys I would also show. Just they're kind of scattered throughout the house, so can't exactly put them all in one place to take a picture of.
Yeah, don't worry.
That's understandable. Don't worry about it.
It's pretty
We
sick.
really, it was great seeing what you could get in general.
Right.
Oh yeah, I didn't even show you the Rick and Morty toys he gave me.
Yeah, did you have a Pickle Rick in there?
No, but I do have a
Funniest
Mr.
shit I've ever
Meaty Jack
seen.
in the Box.
Yeah, dude, it's so
shit.
funny. He's a scientist, and he turns himself into a pickle. Funniest shit I've ever seen.
Have you seen the Dr. Manhattan meme? That was fucking hilarious. So it's like, I've walked across suns. I saw a scientist turn himself into a pickle. It's the funniest thing I will ever see.
Oh man, it's so easy to make fun of Rick and Morty fans.
Oh, yeah. Super easy. It's easy and does a lot of damage.
Oh, I'm existentialist. Oh.
Yeah. You're
So
not
Ever,
my dad.
Ever, before you leave, like, why don't you mention what you're doing in the server?
True.
Oh, oh boy. Well, it's not much exactly since I keep getting distracted, but I'm trying to think. Own story too. So. As much as I want to be an artist like my dad, my skill set is in 3D art, like sculpture, and there goes. Kind of stinks. We got the wrong medium to master. Yeah. But yeah, I'm basically currently thinking of basically an entirely new premise based on my love for Team Fortress 2 and nitty-grittiness of like trying combining the wackiness of TF2 with the grim reality, like say like John Wick and the superheroism and the superhero optimism from Marvel, and basically a weird mishmash of like, how do I say this? I don't know. I feel like I want to make these like what superhero movies or superhero comic books should have been today, instead of all this political size stuff, and actually making a good story for once.
Yeah.
I'd say your best bets in terms of like places to look for inspiration would probably be
I
The
do
Boys
have
and
a
One
lot of
Punch
good
Man.
inspiration. Like for one of my characters, it was actually based on the situation his high school history teacher was in. Well, similar, based but in a different POV. Basically, my first character, she's a child by rape.
Okay.
And my high school teacher, he married his wife was basically my high school teacher, he fell in love with a woman that was raped before and was forced to conceive a child, and it's basically currently he has now a stepdaughter now because of that.
Wow.
And he tracked down her his wife's rapist, and had a chat with him.
Aha. Well, that's
And he didn't kick his ass though, even though he was a Scot. Even though he's half Scottish.
That's some
But,
heavy shit right there.
Yeah.
God
So yeah,
damn.
that's just one of the many inspirations I had.
Mhm. And as Trash mentioned before, I think One Punch Man is definitely a good source of inspiration you might want to look to.
One Punch Man and The Boys, I think, are two really good places to look.
Yo,
I've only seen one episode of The Boys, but I really like it.
Dude,
I haven't watched it, but from everything that I know about it, it feels like kind of what you want to do.
It's basically like a cry against the like corporatization and like massive it's just like a call against like bringing like corporatism and that kind of stuff into like superhero medium or just like storytelling medium in general, and like putting like trying to derive morals and like stuff out of like what is essentially an entirely like corporate and amoral like entity.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
well,
Also, one
Archer,
more comment.
no, sorry, go on.
Don't work for Disney. Don't ever work for Disney. That's why I
Okay.
said to my artist friends, don't ever work for Disney.
Okay.
Because
That makes-
what they did to my dad, it will happen to everyone else, and they can get away with it because they're super rich and wealthy.
Yeah.
Down
well,
with
like-
Disney Monopoly. I can.
Yeah.
Archer, you do know who wrote the original comic for The Boys, right? Garth Ennis. The reason why he wrote The Boys was because he fucking hates superheroes. Like that was the reason why he wrote The Boys. Was he like, because if you read like, I will maintain that the Amazon series might actually be better than the comic, because the comic's just kind of gross. It's just Garth Ennis being unpleasant, and it gets to the point where it's almost like, yeah, but did you have to do that, Garth? And he's just like, yes, I had to break it. And it's just like, okay.
I mean,
And
it
they-
sounds like a lot like sort of like someone trying to make like Watchmen, but doing it in a very like obviously antagonistic way that doesn't really like add to, because like that's the whole thing, is that Watchmen is a counter to like superheroes and superhero comics, but it does so in a very like interesting way that explores like the problems with that. And that's what I think like the Amazon series, at least the little bit of it that I've seen, does do very well.
It really does, because it leans more into the fact that especially for like the superhero characters are still people. Because like The Boys, like there comes a certain point where it's just like they're more caricatures. Like the stuff they're doing with like you actually haven't seen enough of it, but like they've like decided to make some certain characters that were just kind of sort of in the background, like the Deep, into giving them entirely different arcs that are like way cooler, and it makes them into like really interesting characters, and it gives a more insightful look into not just the corporatization of like superheroes, but how corporations treat people who are supposedly their brand and their bread and butter, and how they too also really suffer because of this system.
Yeah.
So that's actually it's really interesting, actually.
I just remember like seeing the first episode and saying like, as an anarchist, I approve.
Yeah, I think that this might be a good place to wrap up today's conversation.
Yeah.
Again, I want to, if you're still here, say, yeah, cool. Thank you for joining us today and showing these pictures. You gave us a lot of really insightful information. Helped us realize a couple of things that some of us might not have realized.
Yeah, if I could get my dad to join you, be ready for like a 2-hour lecture. You can
Dude,
put in
excellent.
podcast.
I am down.
We would love to like at some point like bring on like guests who have like worked in this industry and like worked in the industries that we're trying to break into. I think it would be a really interesting like talk to dedicate like a whole podcast to like talking about like industry standards and industry like stuff. Because like that's ultimately what we're trying to do with the Project Development Hub, is to bring out like the best sort of projects that we can do, and by learning about like the mediums that we're trying to explore and the industries that we're trying to get into, I think that would be really a really good thing for us to explore.
I think actually I actually have a friend. He's been on the server for a little bit, but he's been inactive because he hasn't finished his presentation sheet, his pitch document yet. His sort of writing mentor, Jack, he's been a professional extra in a ton of movies. He's been an extra in, I think, most of the Star Wars movies.
Whoa.
And
A clone
yeah, no,
trooper.
he's been Stormtrooper actually.
Okay.
Older.
Older ones, yeah.
It's the olden days. No. His name is Jack, and a lot of this, he has a lot of insight because he's had several sci-fi novels published, and he's gone through the publishing process. And for the guy I'm hoping will eventually pitch his project on the server, yeah, a lot of the standards that he's now held himself to has been because of how rigorous the publishing industry really is, especially for big name publishers. Like there is a
like HarperCollins and
oh yeah. Forget passive voice. You can't use it. You can't. If you use was twice on a single page, they won't even read the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration. They will just throw it away.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But yeah, no.
Oh yeah. I also want you guys to know some funny story about my. He was actually managed to prank someone in high school before by stuffing a fish in some guy's locker and just leaving it over summer vacation.
Oh man, that's so good. I'm gonna do that to Blizzard one day.
Oh, yeah. Bro, do to Blizzard.
I'll do it.
And
you have to systematically go to every in every business that has come out against the Hong Kong protests.
Oh yeah, I have to.
And
you can't.
my dad's actually from Hong Kong
you
too.
Can't just stop. It can't stop at Blizzard. You've got to do every company.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad's from Hong Kong.
Okay.
Oh.
And Frankie did was that in high school they had him build an EMP machine.
What?
Yeah, in high school, and he and his friends would go around on Sunday Night Football, turn on the machine, go to some guy's house, and see if it would jam the signal on Sunday Night Football.
That's
he
pretty
doesn't
funny,
know if
actually.
he didn't know if it actually worked, but he pretty much did the entire night with his friends, just literally going neighbor house to house, just turning on the EMP
That's
machine.
actually so good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it is low-key social terrorism.
on that note,
We're gonna wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap it up there by leaving you with social terrorism and
fish
pondering what we
lockers.
how we could possibly top this week's episode next week.
Yeah, 100%.
So
Yep.
Thank you all so much for watching, and check out the project development hub. It's in the it should be in the description. Check out the multiple projects that we've got going on. We've got several light novels. We've got some web comics. We've got some books hoping to be published. We've got some people looking to do animations, and we're always looking for more people to join us of any sort. We're looking for artists. We're looking for writers, voice actors, musicians, anybody who has any interest in this kind of stuff. There's always a welcome place for you here.
Awesome.
For sure.
Absolutely.
100%. All right. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye,
And
everybody.
don't forget
Join
about
us.
the link
So
if you want to
long.
know about my dad's works too.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
All right. That's right there. Awesome. We'll link in the description too. Bye-bye.
Join us
So
next time
bye.
with Dragon Ball Z.
Yes.